zoom out a little bit and just think of it practically speaking. So we're in the last quarter of the year. And so from a I guess you could say from a business perspective, from HR perspective, or different industries, everybody's trying to do all that end of the year wrap up for the season, going into the next year. I don't even know. Do you know when like the fiscal year actually begins and ends?
It's either on a calendar basis, or if you have a business, it might be on a different.
Okay.
And so it's always like if you're on a calendar basis, it's December 31st.
So technically, yeah, for a lot of places, it is the end of the year, and then we start a new fiscal year at the beginning of January.
Mm-hmm.
So you have that, right? Like I've heard clients and had people talk about like the end of the year is crazier. It's busier. There's a lot more going on.
Either you're hitting your goals or you're not hitting your goals, right?
And so then there's all this reflection, right? There's this introspection that happens as we move into Q4, into the new year.
Mm-hmm.
So we're being more introspective. Then when you have this like rapid fire of holidays, from Halloween to Thanksgiving and Hanukkah and Christmas and all of the other cacophony of holidays that happened during this last quarter, that's also more introspection about relationships. So I have my business life, like my professional life and what I'm doing as far as like hitting my goals financially, and the things that I feel called to in my career or industry. Then I have relationships, the quality or the lack of quality, or the lack of quantity of meaningful relationships in my life. That introspection happens for a lot of people. So people feel more lonely or isolated if they're not already engaged in like some active community or growing that, right?
Yeah.
Then you also have just the idea of loss, as you mentioned, right? It's not that loss in any other time of the year doesn't hit hard, but it seems to be particularly different because we have these holidays that are oriented around family and coming together and seeing folks you haven't seen in a while and getting together around a family table. So it kind of heightens and magnifies the fact that, oh, that person that was here across the table from me last year is not here with us, right?
Yeah.
And so all of these things are kind of heightening it, as you were mentioning it, magnifying it, making it larger, where it is more palpable and we feel it differently. And then also, as I mentioned with the weather, there is a particular diagnosis in the DSM-5, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Health.
Right.
And it's called seasonal affective disorder. Typically, what that has to do with is seasonal depression. Like, because of changes in the weather, lack of vitamin D, people are not in the sun as much as they were in the summer or the spring. And if you're not someone that is already dialed into like taking supplements, getting time outside when you can, really beefing that up and like being proactive before winter gets here, we also have people getting sick, right? Like, so we call this cold and flu season, and a lot of different immunity issues or autoimmune issues. So really, seasonal affective disorder has to do with, honestly, just having seasonal depression because of the weather. That can be a thing for a lot of people as well. They may be not diagnosed for a lot of people, but it does exist.
So what I'm taking from this though is that we all dealing with something, and if we're dealing with something, the last thing we need to do is make ourselves feel guilty because we're dealing with something. Because as you just articulated, there's all kind of stuff out there that is affecting us that makes us feel emotional at times, right? So that's the first thing I'm taking away from it. So definitely this whole stigma about us dealing with mental crisis. There's some people who are dealing with greater mental crisis that's disabling them to do the normal functions of a day. But there's, I would say, functionally people who are dealing with some mental stress. They're still functionally able to get up and go to work, do things and have the appearance, do a selfie and smile and look good. But they're still struggling.
Yeah.
Right.
It's their avatar, right? It's the person that they put out into the world. Social media, is we like to present the best version of ourselves. And I think subconsciously and maybe even consciously, the reason we do so much of that self-editing for social media and likes and shares is because we have a desire to be liked and to belong to something. And we know that most people are going to like and love when you went on vacation in Bora Bora, or you just had a baby or you just got married or all these like life successes, because that's what we all covet, like the good life, right? Like doing all the things that look good. But we may not, depending on the audience and depending on how you frame it, we may not be as interested in liking and loving, oh man, like I had a really crummy day at work and no one likes me, and this is happening and this stressor is happening, because that doesn't sound as appealing as, sharing the highlight reel, right?
Yeah.
So we edit ourselves to put the version of ourselves that we want people to believe is us 90 to 100% of the time.
And it also, you hear the thought that who wants to be around a negative person?
Right. They consider it being negative if you're honest about. And I think I think social media, there are lots of platforms out there, and there are people that have built audiences around different types of topics and brands and niche, right? So there is a place for that. But I also think when we talk about toxicity or negativity or things that aren't so positive on social media, it's the way you frame it and you discuss, hey, I'm going through this and I'm human, right? And let's be more honest about our struggles and our daily things. And then talking about like where we can go outside of social media to actually do that healing work. I mean, because social media can be a very cool place to share and express aspects of your life and can be very cathartic. But then also, are you going to do more like in-depth healing work one-on-one with someone? If you can go to a mental health professional, if you can go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist for medication management or assessments, if you can sit down with a therapist to really unpack your narrative and your trauma, are you doing that work as well? Are you leaning into any kind of practices that can be helpful for your wellness long term outside of building an audience? Because we know a lot of people that build audiences on social media or just in general, celebrities who have millions of followers and feel spiritually and emotionally bankrupt.
Yeah, dude, I'm trying to remember who told me that recently. It will come to me because he talked about having all of this money. Oh no, it was Deion Sanders.
Wow. Yeah.
Deion Sanders mentioned one time before, I think he was asked on a short, what was your lowest point in life?
Mm.
And he said when he thought he was suicidal.
Mm-hmm.
It was the time where he was playing two sports. He was on basketball and football. And he made a comment that, publicly he was a success. But personally, it was at a time where he didn't have the ideal relationship with his daughters. And it was crushing him. And he said, I don't care who you talk to. Anybody that's making a lot of money is doing well externally, but internally they're struggling with something, which is some real talk. So before we get into the solutions, I want to share with you something that I've experienced, right? Like when you came in today, you asked me how I was doing. I feel a tremendous sense of being authentic with people that I care about instead of just saying, hey, I'm doing fine. Right. So I gave you both sides.
Right, you
I
did.
told you some things I'm struggling with, but then I told you some things I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
And that comes from a couple of things. I had a friend who is doing well, right, from the outside. I'm sure he struggles with his own personal things, but I asked him how he was doing, and his comment, he has a dry sense of humor. He said, look, it could be worse. Then he said it could be better too.
Right.
Which is true. So when people ask me how I'm doing, I always say, hey man, I'm winning because I woke up today. Right. And Michael Collier says, anytime we've woke up, we've already won. But then I also say, I'm struggling